Megan.
Hello, Michelle.
Welcome to Sisters.
Sisters.
And we're never such devoted sisters.
Sisters.
Woo! How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Glad to be here with you. So usually, I bring up some sort of a topic, right? And then we kind of dig into that brain of yours. And then we like to think about what we could ask our community to contribute to and look at maybe some ways that we cope with some of the things that we're dealing with. And we're looking at all things that are neurodiverse, although we've had some conversations around the language around that.
Yeah.
And this series, we're really focusing in on one of the alphabet soup of diagnoses you've been given by the medical community, right? Which is ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And we've talked a little bit about even calling it a disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at the symptoms as described by the Google.
The Google.
That is what the Google, yes. My entire staff laughs at me because I'm always like, I just need the filing cabinet back. I can't handle all this sometimes. And so then they made me a channel in Teams that's called the filing cabinet, the in front of all of it. So that shows you my age. So today I want to bring up sort of a memory I have. So our big topic today is going to be about organization or disorganization. So if you look up ADHD symptoms, this is one of the things. Okay, so I want you to go back in time to your younger self in your pink Pepto-Bismol room. Or maybe it's Barbie pink. We could call it Barbie pink, maybe. But the room was bright pink, right?
Yep.
Talk me through what organization or disorganization looked like in your room.
So when I was younger, I was very disorganized. Having things in specific places was really hard for me. If there was something that I loved, I had a very specific spot for it. The middle drawer of my desk was like a museum.
Oh, yeah.
It was a perfectly curated museum where, you'd open up the drawer and you'd have all the things that you love in there. And I always imagined myself with those white gloves on as a curator. And I just would be staring at the things and looking at them and enjoying them. I couldn't use them, right? But I would just love them and observe them. And they just made me so happy.
Okay, I want you to dig into that curated museum. Can you still see it in your head?
Yes, I can.
That's so sad. Could you draw me a diagram?
So sad.
No, not sad. But I mean, it's amazing to me how, it is sad. Sorry, I didn't mean sad. I just meant, no, what did I mean?
I don't know.
I feel like I was critical.
It's okay.
I'm going to have to do a self-check on that.
Okay.
Yeah. Hold on a minute.
Take a second.
I feel like so much of your life when you were little was hard. So I imagine that middle desk was super special to you. I feel badly that I didn't understand that. The thing that you remember so distinctly is not necessarily some of the things that I remember distinctly from childhood. So if I'll ask you about friends, you had friends for sure in the neighborhood and whatnot, but your most special memories seem to be around things that you kind of were able to curate. And so it made me sad, but then why does it make me sad? You loved it and you still love it. And you have this great, beautiful spirit when you talk about it right now. So I think that's definitely a thing I have to work through of understanding that just because that was your pathway forward doesn't mean it was a terrible existence or that everything in your life was, you made really beautiful things out of your life, even though it was a hard time sometimes.
I do think that there is a sadness to the fact that for me, these objects were supposed to be used. I never got the experience of using them. I thought that them being in pristine condition was the thing that made them special. And so now as an adult, I think, gosh, if I just had an experience with that, you can't take these items when you go. So it's really about enjoying them. And that's what I'm sort of gotten into now is just letting go of this, everything has to be perfect. So yeah, you're right. There is some sadness to it that I've had to work through for sure. I'm very specifically remembering this little tiny pack of colored pencils and they were literally 2 inches?
Yeah. From Japan.
Yeah, yeah. Why were they from Japan?
Yeah, our dad had gone on a trip to Japan, and he brought back
Oh.
all these little things. It was, like, the first time we had seen Hello Kitty and things like that, and I think he went to the 100 yen store, which is like a dollar store. Having lived in Japan a few years back, I saw that like, they have all these tiny, tiny things. So it's like pencils that would be, like, the size for, like, a little tiny animal or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's like they're so tiny you could barely lift them. They're like toothpick size almost.
Yeah, 'cause they miniaturize everything. It's so cute.
Miniaturize
And
everything.
we
So cute.
it was I don't know how big it was, like, just a little plastic covered container of a rainbow pencils.
Mm.
And I think that must have been it because they were from Japan. I was like, "I can never use these because I will never get another set again.
They're so
This is the
special.
cutest thing ever." And I think back on those pencils and I think, "Gosh, I should have used them. I should have tried it out to see what it was like." But I was like, "Well, I don't have a pencil sharpener that's small enough to resharpen these things." And
Can you see their whole desk though? I mean, you can see it laid out. So there was like if you look
I can see some things, yeah.
yeah, what do you see?
Well, God, okay, so Lisa Frank was
Oh,
huge when I was
stickers.
younger,
Yes.
but
So colorful.
she had this it was a ruler,
Mm.
and it had, like, little shapes cut out in the center of it so that you could trace them.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, yeah.
I loved that.
Mm.
Because you could just make a perfect heart or, like, a perfect music note or whatever. Because I
Mhm.
had a hard time being free and doodling. That just
Mm.
wasn't really my thing, and even to this day, when it comes to creation of some sort, I like to take things that are already pre-existing and monkey with them and do
Mhm.
different artistic things. I am not like you where you can just paint your feelings. If I'm going to draw something, I'm going to draw from a photograph, not necessarily from my head. I loved these stencils. And I think
Mm.
dad originally got us into stencils because he had all these different engineering stencils
Oh, yeah.
that, we had different circles and squares and all these different things. And so I kind of got into stencils a little bit with that. And I think I had a few of those in my drawer too. But the Lisa Frank one was like front and center because it was pretty. It had
Mhm.
sparkles in it in the plastic, and it was it was like tinted, I think, a little bit of pink, and it was the best.
I remember that middle drawer. You wouldn't show it to me all the time, but sometimes you'd like pull things out, and I remember it being very organized, or what I thought of as organized. It's interesting to me because you had this hyper organization around that, and yet it makes sense when you say you didn't care if you care about something or you don't care about something that actually has a difference for you in terms of your attending to it. Talk us through like the rest of your room. What did that look like? So the desk was immaculate as I remember it most of the time in the drawers.
Yeah, well, that one drawer. There was a very deep drawer, I think that was originally for files or whatever, and
Mhm.
that was the pit of despair drawer. It was like
What
you
is
just threw whatever you could in there because it was that's what it like, what can you do with it? It's just so big, it's cavernous, it's a place where you just throw stuff. I ended up all of them were just drawers that you threw stuff into because I didn't know how to organize, especially when I was younger. I think there was just like a lot of clothing that was just shoved away into my closet because we were supposed to clean, but that was always really hard. And so I just would throw things places because I didn't know where they belonged. There was always a mountain of stuffed animals on my bed. I don't know if my sheets were actually on my bed. I think they might have been hanging off the so
Mm.
and there was like all these different pictures on the walls that things that I liked. So like when I was really young, I had ripped out a picture of a ballerina, on point, and I had her up there. I had gotten some sort of an award from Brownies, which I had never gotten an award, so I was like really proud of it. And I had all these different things that sort of made me happy, and I would put them on
Mhm.
the wall.
So it's like a visual representation of what made you happy at that time.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about this and I'm wondering, I really want to like dig into that brain of yours. It's always fascinating to me. And I could literally listen to you talk about all the ways you organize things forever because of course I love organization. It's like my favorite thing. And I mean not favorite. I have other
But
favorites
you're
too,
so
like
good at
my
it.
my son and, people in
Yeah.
my life, right? But I do enjoy it. And
You're so
so
good at it.
I am curious from your standpoint, if we dig in a little bit, what does it mean to be organized, or what might it mean to be organized to you? What do you perceive it to be?
I think now it's a feeling.
Mm,
It's this state of being where I don't feel as anxious and out of control, and I feel like I have control over the adulting that I'm supposed to do.
mm. So you feel like your emotions are organized?
I think that my tasks are organized. Like the things that I'm supposed to get done are in a way that my brain can understand it, process it, and then follow through with it,
Mm-hmm.
which then calms me.
Interesting. So you see it's the outward external thing causes the internal thing.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I've always said that the state of my house is the state of my brain. So if my brain is completely disorganized, you will see my house disorganized.
Mm.
And so when I'm chaotic, my home's chaotic because it's just a physical manifestation of what's internally going on.
Interesting. So shoes being everywhere and clothes being everywhere and not being able to find your papers or your books or whatever is because internally you have no organizational system for that.
Yeah, there's something that's causing that system to break down. Sometimes it's a chicken or the egg thing, right? This specific season of my life there's a stress that I'm not dealing with, or I haven't figured out how to incorporate this new world, this new realm, this new stress. of
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
haven't been able to figure out how to put that yet into my life. I don't know
To
if that makes
incorporate it in.
yeah, I mean, like,
Find a place for it, so to speak, mentally or
yeah.
emotionally.
Like, I
Mm.
don't have children, but I would assume that, when you have a child for the first time, it's a completely new way of life.
Oh yeah.
When you get a brand new puppy, there's a whole new energy in your home.
Sure.
And so there's this added stress. It's a stress that you've invited into your home, but there's this stress now that you have to figure out, okay, well, what's this new normal for me?
Mm.
And so I think there's always things in your life that are constantly evolving and constantly changing. And so it's like I can physically now see, oh, there's something I'm not dealing with because my home is completely out of control.
So you're starting to use it as a symptom for yourself.
Yeah.
This is like an observable thing I can see in myself. I need to do a self check here and figure out why this has happened.
Yeah. I think
And
that it's taking me a lot less time to recognize, oh, my house is crazy. What's going on internally?
okay, so I'm going to fast forward us in time from this
Okay.
room to your space in New York when you were in grad school.
Mhm.
So you and I would get on FaceTime. I was in Japan, you were in New York. And now I understand the term of body mirror, but I didn't understand that we would basically spend time together, each doing our own work, but being
Mhm.
there as sort of a support
Yeah.
for the other. And so we would spend hours. I mean, just
Yeah.
hours, and we would clean our houses together.
This is back
Or
when it was like when FaceTime was just called iChat.
was it
That's
called
how
iChat? Is that what it was?
yeah,
Oh
it
my
was
gosh.
iChat. It was before they actually had FaceTime.
Yeah, it was before my son was born. So that would have been, more than 17 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah, it was before the iPhone.
Wow, we're so old. Anyway,
And we're so cool because we were doing it. We were the
we were doing
OGs.
it.
We were
We were doing
doing
it.
it
Yeah.
before anyone else was
And before we
doing
knew
it.
there was a term, a body
Yes.
mirroring, which is super cool. But we would be on for hours and hours, and I would be doing something in the kitchen and food prepping or mopping or whatever it was. And you would be in your house. And I remember there was so much at the beginning. And it took you quite a while, it seemed, to figure out where things should go and how things should be in the house. And we would spend a lot of time trying things. That's when we found the Container Store, and we
The greatest place that
greatest.
ever existed was the Container
Yeah.
Store. It's a magical land, and it just
Yes.
makes my heart sing.
Yeah.
I
Every
love it.
place we've gone, you've helped me or helped you with putting those things up and then figuring out literally a place for everything. And I remember really struggling with this too. So when I first started teaching, I had to go between classrooms.
Mm.
So, I mean, which is really crazy. I taught chemistry and I had to go between two classrooms to teach. So, one period of the day I was in one classroom, the next period I was in another. And they
Jeez.
gave us these carts. to take around. And my cart was the equivalent of your house. It was just everything everywhere. I would try desperately and start off with it organized at the beginning of the week, and I would put things in some order. And by the end of the week, it looked like a bomb had gone off. And not just because I taught chemistry, but like it just everything, I could. And then I was looking again, like, where did I put those student papers? But so I don't think I'm different than you in this at all, actually, in some sense. And it took me almost 2 years to figure out the most simple thing. I kept looking at my department head's cart going, how in the heck does she keep it so organized? It's just beautiful. And then finally one day I was like, oh my gosh, there is a place, a specific place for every single thing.
Mm.
And that is not how we grew up. There was
Mm-mm.
zero of that was in our house. There was no idea of like a key bowl or, you weren't going to put your backpack in the same place every time or.
Well, what's weird is that it didn't translate into our home, no, but Dad had every one of his electronic things all organized in the garage, but it
Yes.
didn't translate into the house.
Yes.
Yeah.
The most organized, curated museum of a place in the garage. And then you come into the house. And I think that's the difference too, maybe like of our parents, right? They're just really different. And he sort of like left the house, I think, to mom mostly and us. So
Yeah.
that was its own thing. But I just remember thinking, oh, there was a place. So she had, whiteboard markers or whatever. I don't remember. Maybe it was just markers. She had a little thing for them, and there was like you put one in each little hole, and then at the end of the class period they couldn't leave till all of them got back in, and she had a place for all the scissors, and there were this, she taught biology, and so she had
her own prop table.
She had her own prop table. And this is where I wanted to kind of say, did you at some point through the theater learn this sense of organization? Because I don't believe either of us had this growing up. And I certainly didn't have it until then. And then our good friend Heather, who we love, shout out to Heather, came and organized my home for me. How I love doing it now. But she came actually to my apartment and helped me organize. She was my OG organizer.
Mm.
And I learned her system. I learned from my department head. And then I started to be more interested in it and started to really build it as like a superpower for myself. But I didn't have that originally. So I'm wondering, because you seem much more organized now with your physical things, at least.
It's getting there. It's still a constant struggle. I was really good at categorizing things.
Mm-hmm.
So in my bedroom, let's see, for high school, I had a craft wall and I had all these found items. I loved putting things together in random. I loved like just putting seashells with buttons I liked creating these like collages. So I had everything cataloged and categorized and really well organized in that sense. Because the idea was that as I was going through life, I would think, oh, I really want to use that piece of ribbon from something that grandma had. And so I had it all cataloged so I knew where it was. And I could pick up and, I could make name tags out of computer ribbon, computer wire, because it was rainbowed. I'm like, that's really cool. So I can make name tags out of that. And I had all these different things so I could find it. But I don't think it ever translated to anything else in my home and in my room. So like so I knew how to categorize. That was the first thing I knew how to do. I think the theater taught me the prop table idea. I didn't really consider putting it into my home for a long time. It took me a while to kind of translate that, but I learned the prop table. But also my very first job in college was a computer technician. And that's where I learned cable management and I learned all sorts of ways to manage technology. So I think
Which
that
is magical skill you have.
it's
A
pretty fun.
magical skill. Yeah. And changes completely the look of a whole house. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're not seeing all the wires and everything. And visually, it just does change it. And so I learned a lot of stuff as I was going along. But I think I always had that innate sense of categorization.
So in terms of categories, you're very organized.
Sure.
Well, that's what I'm getting at though. What do you mean by that, right? I mean, it is.
If I want to be organized, I think I almost feel like if it's a passion project or if it's something that I have these spurts of energy where I'm going to organize it and I get it all set up, but then keeping it that way is not always easy for me. And I'm not organized when it comes to the files in my computer because I can't physically touch them. I'm not organized with my mail. There's things like that where I'm not organized.
And so
I
if we
can,
dig into that just a little bit, like let's say with the computer files, what is happening? Is it just in real time you're creating something and you just don't think, "Oh, I'm not going to worry about where this goes. I'm just making it."
yeah, I mean, definitely if I'm creating something, I'm not considering where it lives. But with computer stuff, I get distracted really easily.
Mm.
I'm a tactile person. I mean, I'm literally like squishing this ball right now just to keep myself focused.
Mhm.
So if I don't have something to tactilely, is that a word? Uh,
To
keep
touch.
to yeah, then it's really hard. I mean, there's a reason why I don't like a digital calendar. I've learned to use it, but it's digital calendars are hard for me. I just can't physically touch it. I can't touch the dates. I can't touch the months. I can only touch the screen, and so I feel removed from it, so it doesn't feel close to me. I don't feel
Mm.
connected to it.
That's so fascinating. I just bought a calendar again, a physical one. And
Really?
uh-huh, and I'm loving it, and even though I don't necessarily go to it every single day, I'm very kinesthetic learner, and the process of writing it for me is what I need because I don't remember what I see visually very well. Bringing it back into my life was almost feeling like defeat. "Oh god, I can't."
Oh
You
no.
know? No, I mean, not bad, but just kinda like, "Okay, you just need this. It's fine." And then it's so pretty. I got a pretty one, and I see it in my purse every day, and I'm so
Oh
happy. And
great.
then I realized, oh, I need another notebook for like my little to-dos and I need another notebook when I'm at meetings. And I've been trying really hard to use my digital pen more and that's helped actually. So when I
Hmm.
digitally ink stuff now, that's helping a little bit more. But this whole paperless thing, I'm not all about it. I love the paper for me, just the
Well,
physicalness of it.
I think that there is this push to go all digital, and that if you're not digital, then somehow you're old and you're analog. And I'm sure there's been research done on this. I don't know, but there's something about putting a pen to paper that
Mm,
the movement. That's how I would remember things in class. Like that's the only way that I
yeah.
could study. So I would just rewrite all of my notes in order to study. And
Yeah.
I've tried it on a screen, and there's just something different about the tactileness of, the physical pushing. And
Hmm.
I don't know what it is, but there's something there. And maybe it's because I'm analog and I grew up with pen and paper and not a pad or not an
Yeah.
iPad, or there is something that happens in that mechanism.
It's fascinating too when if I have a notebook of things, I sometimes remember ish where it is in the notebook, like how far back,
Mm,
right? And it's very hard actually digitally to know where you are in space and
mm,
time with that. And so it's hard to see like what percentage of the papers have you already gone through, for example. I'm like looking back at my notes with people. And so I've had to start using the zoom in, zoom out piece. If I have meetings with staff or whatnot, I have one page and I have all these tiny little things that I can zoom in on, but I have to like reduce it down to keep that one page so I know I'm going back to that one page for that person. Otherwise, I'm just scrolling through a notebook of a million different things I'm looking at and I can't see it. So I've had to figure out organizationally for me with digital how it looks different or how I can use the technology to help me stay organized. But it's been
that's
tough for sure.
fascinating.
Yeah, it's
Well,
definitely.
it's interesting is that I've heard that when it comes to organization, it's also about knowing what something is and where it is.
Mhm.
If I wrote it down in a notebook, I could not tell you where it was or
Right.
what it was. But
Right.
also that, you're talking about this like little tiny speck and then zooming out, and that just gives me anxiety.
Yeah.
You tried
Yeah.
to help me learn, what is that program? You can zoom in and then you can zoom out, and I can.
Oh, the Miro boards.
Yeah, and, like,
Yeah.
you love the Miro boards, and they
Yeah.
just overwhelm me. There's just so
Yeah.
much visually going on that I can't touch it. I wanna be able to touch it. I wanna be
Mm.
able to move it, and I can't do that, and so I get just completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information in one space.
So just to be clear, you can move things in a Miro board if anyone wants to look at those, and they're very, very powerful potentially for some people, and you
Yes.
can make them look more organized, but it wasn't a solution for you. And I feel like that's been pretty true that most of the things that work for me just don't work for you.
Yeah.
And the other way isn't true though. So something that works for you often works for me as well. I
Oh,
find that
interesting.
fascinating. Yeah, because like the prop table, great idea. Like that would totally work for me. I could do that. But you
Yeah.
would need it. You would need it to be that way. And I think that's sort of the fascinating thing as we're looking through this. So like when you are looking now at organization, one of the things we did was try to get rid of a lot of stuff, right?
Oh,
And so
yeah.
you've been, I think Brian says, to the street. Like he's I was reading one of the many books I've been reading, kind of preparing for all of these conversations. And one of the women, and I apologize that I don't remember which book it was, but she said, just get rid of it. You don't
Yeah.
even have to donate it. Just get rid of it, because if you're ADHD, then remembering to go donate it's going to be a problem. So
Yeah. Do you
yeah,
know, when you came over, you helped me fill up my card to take to the donation spot.
yeah.
And I tried to donate it a couple days ago, and the donation place, while it was open, the donation drop off was closed.
Oh
And
no.
so, and I needed to get groceries, so I needed to be able to put stuff in my trunk. And so I had to
Yeah.
literally take all that stuff and put it back into my garage.
Uh,
They're right. Like sometimes as an ADHD person, you just
Yeah,
got to
and
throw it away.
her whole point was don't beat yourself up, don't beat up yourself. I think there's something called free cycle also, so you can put it out and say come and pick it up.
Oh,
And
that would be a smart one.
people might, do that. I don't know if you have a free cycle in your area, but don't worry about it. Don't worry about getting it to donation, even just get rid of it, and don't beat yourself up that, you're the most awful person in the world because you're not taking recycling every single thing or whatever. But I do think that idea of having that extra step, that extra thing stops us sometimes, not
Mhm.
just you, but any of us, from organizing and keeping our space together, because there's this one last thing you have to do and you didn't get it done or don't remember to do it.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about how I feel like I get 90% done, and it's that
Mhm.
last 10% that's always the hardest.
Mhm.
And just getting through to completion, it's so hard for me.
And I feel like you're being so much kinder to yourself now about it.
Yeah.
In
Well,
general.
I mean, I would never have told you that story before
You
that I
wouldn't have
didn't.
admitted that
I
you put it
wouldn't.
all back. So I came out, what was it, like 3 weeks ago, and
I wouldn't have admitted
and
it.
I, like, just did a deep dive into your garage, and you just, so as you're saying it to me, I'm getting physically, like, nauseous, like, "Oh, it's all back in there." But anyway, no, it's good.
It's in one spot, and it's gonna definitely go. It just need to
But
do
no,
it.
I love that you're being vulnerable about it now, and that I'm also not as completely insane as I used to be about things too. So I think we're both learning.
It's called
So
growth.
it's growth. It's a growth opportunity. Love those. When you think about yourself now, what are some of the strategies? I know we've talked about prop tables, but what are some of the strategies that might be working for you? And it sounded like keep your tasks organized, which help you keep your home organized, maybe, and then your emotions organized, it sounds like almost.
Yeah, and it's just figuring out what the right organizational system is. I've
Mm,
tried many, many different things, and I'm currently working through this lady. She has a company called Organize 365,
mm,
and she has an entire ADHD bundle. And
mm,
I've looked through a lot of different things, and it was the first one that kind of made sense to me because she has this concept of a Sunday basket, which is just a basket that you can use any day of the week, but for her, Sunday is the day you do it. But the idea is that there's all these different decisions that have to be made throughout the week, and
mhm.
you defer all of those decisions to one day.
And this is
So,
Lisa Woodruff.
yeah, Lisa Woodruff.
What kind of decisions are you deferring?
Like opening my mail, is it shreddable? Is it actionable? I got there's some things that I know I need to shred because of military stuff. Brian brought it in. What do we do with that? Or this item needs to be returned. There's all these just different things that pop up, like, oh, I want to buy this item.
Mm,
I need to get more of whatever from the store, or I have ideas for like you or the podcast. So
mm,
I have all of these different things that if I were to text you and say, hey, here's my idea, well, first of all, it might get lost throughout the week. But
mhm.
secondly, it's taking me time. I have to stop whatever it is I'm doing, go onto my phone, text you. And then I've just now derailed myself from whatever it is I was doing. So
Mm.
it's sort of helping me to like take all of these very ADD things in my head. I can write it down real quickly, get it out of my head. And I have a specific spot I know it goes back to. And I know I have to deal with it every day. So like after we talk here, I'm going to go through my Sunday basket and I'm going to try to get through all those things. So I know, hey, there's a place. If Brian has something that he wants me to do, he can write it down and put it in my Sunday basket for me and I'll deal with it on Sunday. And
That's
so
so interesting because as you're saying that, I was thinking of like the parking lot. A lot of times in
mhm,
industry or in conversations I've been in, it's going to derail the whole conversation if we go there, but we're just going to put it off in the parking lot and we'll come back to it.
yeah. And that's the
Yeah.
thing that I've noticed with this is that there's so much throughout the day that derails me.
Hmm.
So if I can start to practice some of those things that derail me, then I put it in the Sunday basket. I can say, okay, I'm going to deal with it then. And then I would do all of those things at the same time. So she's like, okay, well, then you collect everything that you would do at your computer and then you do all those items at the same time. And it
Hmm.
kind of is similar to sort of the getting things done guy in the sense that you're kind of categorizing things and you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I have to be at my computer to do these 10 items. So now I'm at the computer. I can get those done as opposed to going back and forth between the entire week and doing it, here, doing it there. Even just the physical moving to your computer can probably take up about 20 or 30 minutes throughout the week. They did some research on it. It says on average, people save about 2 to 5 hours a week just from deferring tasks to one day.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I feel like I'm so sort of naturally do that, but I didn't have a name for it or something,
Yeah.
right? So that's what's so interesting. Mom and I live together, and so we meet on Sundays to talk about budget and things that
Mm.
we want to get for the week or for the house or whatever it is. And I don't do it weekly, but I do one day a month where I'm like really going through mail. I dump all the mail that is already a trash on my way in, but it's interesting to kind of think of how you do things in real time, but then also saving things to do them all at once.
That was one thing I tried was I would process the mail when I first got in.
Mm.
And that has actually helped quite a bit because I used to have just piles and piles of mail that I
Right.
just
There's
got
so much
so.
that you get mailed that's just junk now,
Yeah.
right?
She said she used to do that too. But then just that process of having to stop whatever it is you're doing, so you're going home, you pick it up and having to then take that time to process, you're having
Mm.
to sort of rev yourself and kickstart yourself back into that task. So how
Decision
much,
making mode. Yeah,
yeah. And so
that
how
makes
much
sense.
faster would you be just to do it all at the same time every single week? And I was
Mm.
like, okay, that makes sense.
You're into efficiencies for sure. You love
I
that.
love efficiencies.
Yeah,
I
that
love
stops
them.
you. It stops you
I
sometimes,
love
actually.
them.
You'll spend like 19 hours figuring out how to do something more efficient.
Yeah, and then it only saves me what, like a few minutes, but I love it. I love it.
I'm so curious about our community. We have some people telling us their ways of doing things. I'm really curious if they have any organizational tips that they've found have helped. I know not everything works for every person, right? So that's one of
Mhm.
the common pieces is that no two ADHD brains are alike. So you can't say, oh, this is going to work for somebody or isn't. But I think it's interesting to hear people's ideas and try them on. And I know you're always a willing guinea pig.
Oh, I am. Even if I think I know how to do it, I'm, like, always willing to do someone else try it out.
Yeah.
Because what if
Yeah.
it is better? What if it is more efficient, Michelle? Then
Then what?
my
Boom.
whole life is gonna be different.
Mind blown.
It would be amazing. You
Crazy.
kn it you know what's funny? Okay, I was thinking about so in the military, when you get to a new place, they have, like, usually a Facebook group of all the people who are living there.
Mhm.
And this one group, because they get so many different people, they've just created an entire tab of recommendations.
Hmm.
So they have pediatrician and all the recommendation, and then people can
Mm.
add on to those to those little sections for all the different doctor recommendations people have because they get asked so often. And I was thinking, like, gosh, that would be a cool thing to do for the ADHD world. It's like, okay, time management, and then here's all these different options you can try, just different things so that because our brains aren't all the same, right?
Right.
Just like we don't all need the same doctor, we need whatever is going to be fit for us.
Right. Because the executive functioning pieces that might be more of a struggle for some are less of a struggle for others. And I do think that that is common for many people
Yeah.
that have some version even if it's a light version of ADHD, nothing that you would be diagnosed with, so to speak, or need medication for, but this is an area in your life that's harder for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would be really fascinating.
I think that would be cool to kind of start compiling those.
I love it. Well, I'm so happy to have gotten to talk to you today.
Me
and
too.
I keep learning, and I keep learning also sometimes my ableist or just older sisterist views. Judgments, let's be honest.
Older sisterist. I like that. I feel like that actually is a thing.
Oh,
for
yeah.
like everybody
100%.
out there who is a younger sister. They're like, "Yep, I get that." 100%.
100%. Well, I love you.
I love you too.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Sisters. This new series has us focusing more specifically on ADHD and its symptoms. If you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoy laughing with each other, please share it with someone you think would benefit from the conversation. Make sure to follow us on whatever platform you're currently listening to so that you can get notified each week. Next week, we will be talking about tasks and how they affect my ADHD brain. Spoiler alert, it's a lot. Here's to a great end of the week, and remember to stay curious. Hold on, Daisy's at my door snorting.
Daisy the pug. Sometimes you post a daily dose of Daisy on the YouTube channel, don't you?
I do.
Cool. Yeah, and she's adorable. So if you haven't checked out Daisy, you gotta check out
Daisy. We have video now. Come here, Daisy. Come here. Come and say hello. Come and say hello. We have a Daisy. Say hello.
Hi, Daisy.
Say hello. Yes. Okay. All right.
Oh.
Put you on now. Right. Where was I?
Exactly. So you can't put her in the Sunday basket, but
that would be a cute picture, though.